I think that Freddie's Freddie's books is just fixated on one track. He's not rounded. He's not well rounded at all, and that's the problem with him. And I can challenge him on a debate any day, anytime, on any subject matter. It's about facts. It's about truth. It's not about propaganda. And the likes of a Freddie and a Mark Phillips, they have to sing for their supper. They have to sing for their meal. And so when they came to broadside Forbes Burnham, as though he was such an evil person and as though he has done nothing for Guyana, I thought that it's only fair. It's only fair that we start speaking out so that the younger generation can understand what propaganda is about. And so our job, and those who are brave enough to come out publicly and to denounce the likes of a Freddie Kissoon or a Mark Phillips and setting the record straight. I think when Freddie Kissoon said that Burnham's government was the third worst or situation in Guyana, slavery and colonialism.
To serve my country, yeah, yeah, Guyana, oh, Guyana, I want to serve my country, Guyana, beautiful, happy and free, Guyana, let's cooperate with our government to help develop Guyana the free. Together, my comrades, we will build out new Guyana, a country where all have equal opportunity. So let us begin now to show loyalty to Guyana by showing love and respect for all Guyanese. My brother, my sisters, we will live and die here together. Our motto, one people, one nation, one destiny for harmonious living. Cooperation will Guyanese. Will it time we settle all the rich land in the interior? Our natural resources are there in great quantity, and we will do farming and establish towns by the border. My greatest desire is to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help my Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong and great and free. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Guyana, I want to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help my Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong and great and free. Oh yeah, Guyana. Guyana, Guyana, I want to serve my country, Guyana, and sincerely help my Guyana to move along. Our government asks us that we study hard and we learn the things that will help Guyana to become strong and great and free. Oh yeah.
moment, and he's quite busy, so I don't want to take up the time. Let's have Mark Benschop here on the program. Mark Benschop, welcome to Voice of the Diaspora.
Yeah, thank you so much, Norman, and I appreciate it. And you should indicate to your listeners. I think you alluded to the fact that it's an impromptu interview. Let them know that you bullied me into this interview.
I don't think
Let
there's
them know. Let
anybody
them
on
know that
God's earth that can bully you.
let them know that you called me at 4 o'clock my time this morning, and I know the important. I know the importance of the message, and so I'm glad that we finally come around in me granting you at least for us to have a discussion. So I don't want it to appear that I'm such a big guy that I got a grant interview or whatever. So now is the time that I have
You're
a
big
bit
in
of
your own right. You're big in. I know. I'm aware that you were quite busy today. I have confirmed that. So that is fully understood. Never quite busy for the struggle though, and you have been in this fight for decades, and I want my viewers to understand that. I don't know what is happening with my program; is glitching. But Mark, here we are. You've been trending recently in the news across Guyana and the Diaspora, the Village Voice, one of our popular newspapers in Guyana, and of course on social media, across social media. What is happening? We know we've had Mashomani recently, and we've heard the Prime Minister Mark Phillips talking about the legacy of Forbes Burnham in a very negative way. We've also heard former Kaitro News columnist Freddie Kissoon, who is now a mouthpiece of the Guyana Chronicle, who is with the PPP today, talking negative things about Freddie Kissoon. He's saying that you yourself and former Mayor of Georgetown, Obraj Narain, who would have accosted him on the issue he raised about Burnham, that would have put him in this place. He's saying that both of you are not well read. Talk to us about what the columnist Freddie Kissoon is saying and what Mark Phillips is saying and why you responded to them and what was it about you responded to them.
Thank you so much again. I don't want to focus much on communists, not columnists, communists, because Kissoon has used his column to basically just go after individuals, especially black, so to speak, and to pretend as though he has the monopoly on intelligence. It's far from it. Freddie is just a flatfoot, pseudo intellectual individual masquerading as some sort of expert on every issue. And so I'm not too bothered about him about who is well read and who is not well read. I think that Freddie's Freddie's books is just fixated on one track. He's not rounded. He's not well rounded at all. And that's the problem with him. And I can challenge him on a debate any day, anytime, on any subject matter. And I'm sure your audience will already know who will turn out to be to get the upper hand on that. But this is not a challenge to see who's brighter than who or whatever. It's about facts. It's about truth. It's not about propaganda. And the likes of a Freddie and a Mark Phillips, they have to sing for their supper. They have to sing for their meal. I don't have to sing for anything. All I have to do is to preach what the truth is and what the facts are. And so when they came to broadside Forbes Burnham, as though he was such an evil person and as though he has done nothing for Guyana, I thought that it's only fair. It's only fair that we start speaking out so that the younger generation could understand what propaganda is about. And the likes of Freddie Kissoon, they have personal grudges, personal issues, not anything to deal with facts and anything to substantiate their case. They just talk while. It's as though they have to whine for the money, they have to whine for the dollar, and they have to whine for the food. And so our job, and those who are brave enough to come out publicly and to denounce the likes of a Freddie Kissoon or a Mark Phillips, and setting the record straight. I think when Freddie Kissoon said that Burnham's government was the third worst or situation in Guyana, slavery and colonialism. Now, it's a disrespect to all right-thinking African Guyanese when you are going to equate a Forbes Burnham government to that of 400 years of slavery, hardcore slavery, where thousands of people were murdered, thousands of women were raped, and all manner of things, forced labor for 400 years, and you're going to equate a few years of Burnham's government to slavery. That is an insult. It is a racist comment, and Freddie Kissoon should not be allowed to get away with these sort of things. As it pertains to Mark Phillips, well, Mark Phillips said that under Burnham he had white mouth. Well,
But let's
I
go to
grew up
what he,
under
before
Burnham.
you continue, Mark, let's go briefly to what Mark had to say before you comment.
Market in Linden, known as the Co-op Crescent Supermarket, used to be run by the government. Let me talk. There was nothing in the supermarket beyond rice and sugar. Whenever they bring the supply of the other stuff, you had to line up, and it was rationed to you. And as a little boy, we like to play with names and abbreviations. So LFSB, line up for soap and butter. That happened in this country. People had rickets, scurvy. You have about bantiram, you have about rice flour bread, and after day two when you pull it so, there's some long sign, berry, and you can't stand up properly, white mouth, and you come and telling us, but people starving. I used to go to a supermarket in Linden known as the Co-op Crescent Supermarket. Used to.
Of course, that's the voice of Prime Minister Mark Phillips and what he had to say. Mark, and I am aware that you responded to him in the national newspapers and via social media, via your program. But talk to us about the statement he has made. And you know, it's disgusting to say the least, but it's your platform. Talk to us.
Yeah, I don't recognize these guys since 2020. I do not recognize them as a government, as a legitimate government. I never recognized them from 2020 to 2025 as a legitimate government, and neither am I prepared at this point in time to recognize them as a legitimate government again, because the elections results, the recent elections results in 2025 are still questionable, highly questionable, because there's nowhere on earth that the PPP can garner 36 seats as they claim they have. So I do not recognize Mark Phillips as a legitimate prime minister of Guyana. And I just want to make that clear. So I'm going to address him as just Mark or white mouth Mark Phillips. Now, when you have someone who sits in that position, who has benefited from the PNC, who has benefited from Forbes Burnham, and who should be given all credit to Forbes Burnham because he sits there as a former head of the Guyana Defense Force, even though he got that position through default, because many would remember that it was Jack Dale that actually destroyed the hierarchy of the Guyana Defense Force with well-trained individuals, brilliant individuals, so that he can replace those strong, intelligent individuals with pakus, weaklings, and propagandists like Mark Phillips. And so Mark Phillips is comfortable in the skin that he's in right now, running around Guyana like a leopard. He has no shame, he has no class, he has no self-respect, and he does not have any respect for the Guyanese people, but more so the people of Linden. Shame and disgrace on Mark Phillips. And just quickly, if Mark Phillips said that he had white mouth under Burnham's government, how does he explain the white mouth that he has right now? The PPP is in office and he still has white mouth. Look, I grew up under Burnham's government, so to speak, from the 70s to the 80s. I grew up under quarantine. I never once had white mouth or wapia or whatever. And it's a shame and disgrace that a man who sits there as prime minister of the country and who wants to be so ungrateful to Forbes Burnham is still talking with white mouth on both sides of his mouth. Now, people may ask, what is white mouth, especially the younger generation? White mouth is some wapia, some slime coming off on both sides of your mouth. And Mark Phillips has demonstrated that nothing has changed with him.
Mark Benschop here on Voice of the Diaspora. Of course, he has taken time out from his busy schedule to join us. He has limited time, but we'll try to squeeze as much as we can squeeze out of him. Mark, what is it about Burnham? Freddie Kissoon, the PPP, Mark Phillips, Prime Minister Mark Phillips, as you have just responded to him there, they seem to have a problem with Burnham. Burnham has left this world since I think 1984 and 1985. He's a former president of Guyana. He fought in the struggle for the liberation of Guyana from colonialism, like Cheddy Jagan and others, Ashton Chase and others. Burnham was a black president of Guyana that did, we understand, a lot. The history has proven that he has done a lot, but the PPP seems to want to rewrite history, and they continue to bastardize Burnham, they show Burnham as they portray Burnham as a boogeyman. They portray Burnham as the worst thing that has ever happened to Guyana. Is it because he was a black man? Is it because his leadership was profound? Talk to us about Forbes Burnham. In your estimation, I know you're not PNC. I know you're not representing the PNC or anything, but as a Guyanese, talk to us about your view of Burnham's contribution as against what is happening on the PPP, under the PPP present day and under the past leadership of Barra Jagdeo. Give us a comparison of that.
It is there for everyone to see. Under Burnham's government, lots of developments, from the Kanji Bridge to the Linden Soosdijk Highway to the Demerara Harbor Bridge to all of the schools, the multilateral schools, free education from nursery to university, and all these different things. The Abari, I think it's the Abari River Bridge. You get the Black Bush polder, you get rice farmers have never enjoyed benefits as they have under Burnham and the PNC. The bauxite industry was thriving. And while bauxite was carrying the nation under President Forbes Burnham, it was the PPP and the likes of Freddie Kissoon that were actually burning cane fields. Now, I'm not saying that Freddie was out there burning cane fields, but Freddie was actually a PYO member of the PPP. And so he spoke about his radicalism. And so he jumped from there, he jumped to the WPA, fetch water for Walter Rodney. Probably never met Walter, but he was the water boy, so to speak. And then he jumped back to the PPP, then he jumped to the AFC, then he jumped to APNU, and then he jumped right back into the arms of the PPP regime. So he is a political grasshopper. He is a political prostitute. And so when these guys, when they chastise Burnham, it has a lot to do because Burnham was of superior intellect. There's no question about that. And the Queen Elizabeth and others basically admired his oratory skills and so forth, his intellect. They admired all of these things. And even though Burnham was what he was intellectually, he was still also a grassroots man. He could walk at Stabroek Market, Border Market, Blackbush Polder, and even ground with the ordinary brothers and sisters. And so because of that sort of superior intellect, if we want to call it that, it envied the likes of Freddie Kissoon, who can't come close to Burnham's shoes, envy the likes of a white-mouth Mark Phillips, who is nothing close to being intelligent, envy the likes of a Barra Jagdeo, of a Irfan Ali, and all these guys. And so outside of that superior intellect, it has to do with race also. In the case of Freddie Kissoon, every single black leader in Guyana, Freddie has chastised. Lincoln Lewis, Nigel Hughes, you name all of them in Guyana. Everybody he feels that he can insult, that he can go after, even those who would have helped him, those who would have saved his life, and all manner of things. And Burnham is no different. And so when Freddie Kissoon said that Burnham was such a bad man, Now, nobody's perfect, mind you, right? I'm sure Burnham made mistakes. I was a little boy. I heard the propaganda being spread that Burnham was the richest black man in the world. I got older. I'm now an old man, uh, Norman. Not as old as you, but I'm an old man, right? And I am yet to see the evidence that Burnham was the richest man. In fact, Jagdev makes Burnham look like a schoolboy.
Boy.
Irfan make Burnham look like a schoolboy in terms of dictatorship, in terms of cruelty, and all these sort of things. Now, you can't see the wealth because he probably died a poor man. But because of the propaganda by the PPP regime and the likes of Freddie Kissoon, they want you to believe that they want the people to believe in Guyana that Burnham was such a bad guy. Then they painted Burnham as a racist. This is the same Burnham was admired by Prime Minister of India, the late Indira Gandhi. He was admired by Indian leaders. He was admired by Indian singers like Mohammed Rafi and so forth who visited Guyana. Lata Mangeshkar, and all these people admired Burnham. But yet the PPP and their propaganda machine, they want to paint this impression that Burnham was such a bad guy, that Burnham was such a racist, according to them. It's just propaganda because there's no evidence to substantiate their point. And it's a pity, though, that the PNC guys, the senior PNC guys, and including those from Burnham Foundation, are not aggressive enough to go out there and to stand up and defend Burnham's legacy. Having said that, though, back to Freddie Kissoon. Freddie spoke about Burnham as though Freddie, experienced all these bad things about Burnham. Burnham had no time for the likes of a Freddie Kissoon, so to speak, and his little chihuahua barks. Ruff, 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 ruff. Burnham had no time. In fact, probably it was a little bit of humor for Burnham. So there was nothing about Freddie back then that the likes of a Burnham, President Burnham, would have been afraid of. Now, Freddie said that Burnham did all of this thing. Freddie didn't tell the people that when he was in Grenada, Freddie, jumped to get a free passage, went to Grenada, claimed that he was going to fight. But while he was in Grenada, he ducked and he hid. And after the invasion by under Reagan administration, President Reagan, it was Burnham who sent a helicopter to rescue Guyanese who were stranded in Grenada. And guess who was one of those who was stranded and begging and fearful, thought that he was going to die, and he wasn't prepared to die, as much mouth that he has about the struggle. He wasn't. He was crying like a little baby, and he has a history of crying, by the way. And so it was Burnham and Burnham's government that sent a plane to Grenada to rescue those individuals there, including Freddie Kissoon. So Burnham government wasn't after Freddie Kissoon to persecute Freddie Kissoon or anyone. And so there is no evidence of that. In fact, all of Freddie's persecutions came under the PPP regime.
Government.
They persecuted him. They fired him from UG. They did all sorts of
on him and all of that.
Fired his wife. They dashed substance in his face, and we know what's all these things. They threatened his life. These things never happened under Burnham. But yet he's not going to describe Jack Dale and Irfan and Donna Ramatar and the PPP the way that he has described the PNC and Burnham government. And this is why I'm saying, even though he portrays himself as a multiracial guy, oh, he has a little black in his family and all these sort of things, Freddie Kissoon, based on his writings and his utterances, is coming across as a stone-cold racist. As dark as he is, a Madras as he is, he's coming across as a stone-cold racist and tremendous contempt for people of African descent.
Mark Benschop here on Voice of the Diaspora. Of course, he's very busy. His program will be aired, I think, in the next 2 hours on this platform, and I will urge my viewers to go over to his platform to hear what he has to say. We have to share the platform because this struggle is serious at the moment. This is so great that he has taken time out. He had so much to do today, and he has his program this evening and every evening during the week, and so it it says a lot about his commitment to the struggle in Guyana. Mark Burnham, I know you have mentioned a lot about Burnham. The PPP, and I don't want to repeat myself, but the PPP is continuing their sojourn in bastardizing Burnham every day of the week. We see opposition politicians today embracing the PPP at Mashramani. We see them greeting the PPP. We are not hearing a lot about Burnham's legacy from our current politicians as the PPP lambastes Burnham. And that is an attack on the current politicians, as if to say that your predecessor was nothing, so you are nothing. And they're placing that into the minds of young people. We are not getting conclusive, explanations from our opposition politicians, those in the PNC, APNU. In fact, I believe, and I don't know if you share this view, that there should be a sustained public relations position in which the legacy of Burnham is placed in the public for our young people to really understand what was his contribution, who was Burnham, and so on. That these views by the PPP, these nasty and horrible boogeyman views, can be dispelled. What are your thoughts in relation to what the PPP is doing and that kind of lukewarm response by our opposition, in particular the APNU PNC, in not prominently
thank you.
placing Burnham on the
The PPP is just about propaganda. They're not about truth. They're just basically, it is what it is with them. And you could understand where they're coming from, so to speak. But what you cannot understand is the unwillingness, for the most part, by those PNC individuals to fight back and to stand up and protect and to defend their leader, their comrade leader, their founder, their founding father of the PNC, and so forth. And I say this because it appears that because of the PNC guys being beaten with propaganda by the PPP, it's like some of them apparently are afraid or ashamed to defend Burnham, as though to stand up and defend Burnham is a crime. They need to do that, including Burnham's relatives, including Burnham's children, who are silent when it comes to attacks on their father. And I say this because the PNC has not been doing a good job in defending Burnham. And so I want to say to even the PNC people, the PNC leadership, that there's nothing to be ashamed of. The biggest dictator, the biggest dictator in Guyana right now, the biggest dictator in Guyana right now is Barajak Deo. Hundreds of people have been slaughtered, murdered under Barajak Deo's regime. People have been persecuted under Barajak Deo's regime. I can't recall hundreds of people being murdered under Burnham's government. I can't recall people being persecuted and jailed because of their political views under Burnham. People were jailed because of criminality, but not because of their political views. I can't recall 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 persons being charged with treason and sedition, all these things under Burnham, but under the corrupt PPP regime. All of these and more. And mind you, these same ones who are cussing out Burnham benefited from the PNC in so many ways.
free education.
They say that Burnham was a racist. They say that Burnham was a racist. Burnham ensured under the PNC that all holidays in Guyana and every ethnic group, every persons of different religion or whatever, have a chance to celebrate something. The Christians, the Hindus, the Muslims, you name it, got a holiday to celebrate. Pagwa, Diwali, all these things came about not because of Barajak Deo or Irfan Ali or Donald Ramatar or Janet Jagan or Cherry Jagan. They came about under the PNC government, under Forbes Burnham government. And therefore, you got to give Jack his jacket. And the younger generation, they have to know who Burnham was and how Burnham contributed in the biggest way right now. No other president in Guyana's history can come close to the developments and the vision of Forbes Burnham. None. Jack Dale is miles and miles behind that. And so the young people also have to know that in 1992, when they took office, by 1993, they squashed free education at the university level. And by doing so, for 20-something years, they have deprived an entire generation of having free education at the university level. They have destroyed the education system. They have destroyed the health sector. Every single ministry in Guyana were destroyed as a result of the PPP and corruption by the PPP. They said that Burnham banned flour. That's a lie. They said that Burnham banned this. That's a lie. Whatever and whenever those items were restricted, Burnham had the support. It's called critical support from Chetty Jagan. Chetty supported the restriction of those items, including flour. So if you're going to blame Burnham, that Burnham banned flour, and Chetty supported Burnham in so-called banning flour, why not blame Chetty too? Why say that it's Burnham banned flour because he don't want Indian, he don't want to be cook roti and thing, as though flour is roti is the only thing people make flour, flour is making. What about duff? What about this? What about that? Is only one set of people that eat flour in Guyana? So where is the evidence that Burnham targeted our Indian brothers in Guyana? And so these propaganda have to come to a stop. And it can only come to a stop if people go out who have experienced life under Burnham's government. Again, they weren't perfect, don't get me wrong. But compared to what Abi get today, what Abi see today, Burnham government was a A1, a class A, when it comes to development, when it comes to racial harmony, and when it comes to being proud to be a Guyanese. Under this corrupt PPP regime, far from it. All you get is a bunch of white-mouth people like the Freddie Kissoon and the Mark Phillips and all of them. A bunch of white-mouth, Nimakaram, Katahar, Korhi, Chamar. And I end with that note as I look.
Mark, I know you're pressed for time and I want to get your closing remarks, but I want to show this brief clip before you give your closing remarks. I know you're pressed for time and we have to let our young people and the Guyanese people across the world, not so young, understand the intellect of Burnham, what Burnham was about, what Burnham said in 1968 when the PPP was ruling for 7 years before that, and all those problems in simple language. When you compare his intellect to that of President Ali and Barra Jagdi and Mark Phillips, I want our young people and all Guyanese to have an understanding of what he believed in as president, what he projected, how he spoke, and so on, and that he was not a boogeyman. Let's go to this brief clip before we get to closing remarks. Some political activist, long-standing political activist, and current talk show host, popular talk show host, Mark Anthony Benschop.
The Twitter campaign has come to an end. On the results, the People's National Congress, in the interests of peace and stability in Guyana, has agreed with the support of the United Force to form the government. One of the more serious tasks facing us at this moment is the attainment of independence at the earliest point of time. One of the disturbing features of the election, which we have noted, is the apparent cleavage existing in our society, brought about by colonialism and 7 years of mismanagement and misrule. It has come to our knowledge that despite the years of disaster suffered by the people of this country, a large section of the electorate was persuaded against its best interests to vote for the party formerly in power as a result of the dishonest and opportunist propaganda that, unless that party was returned to power, those people would suffer. The new government, headed by me, intends to show by its actions in the immediate future, and indeed throughout its term of office, that this is not true. The problem of racial cleavage, racial antagonism and distrust, which the last government allowed to develop during its term of office, is still with us. But our government recognizes this as a challenge which it intends to accept and which it is determined to overcome. My government considers that it is a matter of the greatest importance and the utmost urgency that an atmosphere of relaxation be established immediately. The reduction of tension, which is already apparent and which will become more pronounced with every passing day, when it is realized that not only are we intent on being fair and just, but also that we have at our disposal the means to carry out our intention, is merely the first fruits of our attainment of office. Enemies of this country would like to see racial division and antagonism continue. They will not have that satisfaction. The government recognizes that its duty is to rule in the interests of all the people of this country. It will dispel the fears of the apprehensive and confound the hopes of those who seek the destruction of this country. To be specific, this government holds that all the people of this country are equally important, whether they belong to a large group or to a small group. To us, the Amerindians are important. To us, the Chinese are important. To us, the Portuguese are important. To us, the Europeans are important. To us, the mixed races are important. To us, the Africans are important. To us, the Indians are important. In short, all Guyanese are important and valued members of our community, and we cherish them and consider that as a government it is our duty and privilege to guard, protect, and further the real interests of all. It would appear that the would-be destroyers of this country have sought to convince our Indian citizens that they have cause to fear because of the removal of the former government. We can assure our Indian citizens here and now that rather than cause for fear, they have much to hope for from the new government. This government is not bent on the confiscation of property. This government will not pursue policies likely to bring the races into collision. This government will maintain law and order. This government, while in office, will never declare its impotence to see that the lives and property and personal safety of any citizens are protected. We are fully aware that attempts will be made in the future, as in the past, to create disturbances. All of us know who are likely to create disturbances and who think that they have some benefit to be derived from chaos and violence. We have no benefit to derive from such things, and we will stamp out firmly and ruthlessly any disruption of the calm and studied and steady progress which we are determined to establish and maintain in this country for the good of all. We ask for time, patience, understanding. The damage done over the last 7 years cannot be repaired in a day. We cannot and will not condone and accept the nepotism and corruption of the past 7 years. Changes are necessary, and changes will be made. But no one who is honest and possessed of ability need have the least apprehension. The results of the election and the formation of our government are not to be considered a victory for one party, but a triumph for the whole Guyanese people. There is nothing to gloat over. Nobody is pantam. But all of us are, I am sure, sobered by the realization of how near we came to having our country destroyed, and how arduous were our endeavors to give this country the chance to live, to breathe, to survive. It has been reported to me that some established organizations have made representations to the British government about Guyanese affairs. I wish to announce that in the immediate future I shall seek to hold discussions with the Mahasabha, the Hindu organization, the United Sadr Islamic Anjuman, ASCRIA, GALE, the Chinese Association, and of course with the Archbishop of the West Indies, the Roman Catholic Bishop of Georgetown, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Congregational Conference, the Methodist Body, and other religious and cultural organizations. My purpose as Premier is to establish a consultative democracy. And now that the majority of the Guyanese electorate has declared in favor of the government in power, it is my wish that Guyanese in and out of the legislature, with malice towards none and goodwill towards all, will settle down to the engaging task of binding up the nation's wounds and charting a new course, a new road of peace.
Mark Benschop here on Voice of the Diaspora. Sorry, your closing remarks. Thank you for your patience. I got really emotional, Mark, as I listened to Forbes Burnham in 1968. It was. Our children, tears really come into my eyes, but our children must understand. They must know, they must now seek to know who Burnham was, his contributions, and what and why the PPP continues to bastardize him. And it is something that the opposition, the PNC in opposition, must robustly pursue in ensuring our young people are educated, that they can get that pride, because Burnham is portrayed by the PPP as an evil person, as a president who was racist and enforced division and sufferation and so on. Listening to Forbes Burnham there, I became emotional, and I will play it one more time after you would have concluded your would have given your closing remarks. Mark, I thank you so much for making the points you have made on this program, and we appreciate you here. And I know the Guyanese people are elated by the fact that you are standing up for what is right in Guyana. Your closing remarks, Mark Benschop.
Yeah, thanks again. Burnham's speech there moments ago would make the likes of Freddie Kissoon to be what they are, dunces, not well-rounded intellectually and not well-read, all-round readers. They're fixated on one thing and with absolutely no class. And let me just say that I have a few minutes more to spare since you deliberately put President Burnham's speech there. And so I'll say that my daughter has gone off to her gymnastics. Her mom took her, so I'm saved, so to speak. So I have a few extra minutes with you. But I want to say that there are lots of other folks like Burnham in Guyana, hidden treasure, who have not been given the ability or opportunity, to excel in so many ways because of the dictatorship of the PPP. The PPP, let's not run away from it. The PPP is a dictatorship. The PPP is a semi-apartheid regime. The likes of Freddie Kissoon, political prostitutes like Freddie Kissoon, identified the PPP as a racist government, as a racist party. He identified Bharat Jagdeo as an ideological racist, when at one point we all sat together and we pointed out that all of the ambassadors appointed to wherever from Guyana, not one of them, or maybe at that time, maybe only one, was of African descent, or maybe none. And so all of these things we pointed out, but because Freddie Kissoon felt that the PPP wanted to kill him, and so he started to lash out against them, and he came to us, people like us, Lincoln Lewis, David Hines, thinking that we could save his life, not realizing that the PPP, they were after us as well to execute us, to kill us, just like they did Waddle, just like they did Courtney Crummy Wing, and just like they did dozens of other individuals who were killed under questionable circumstances. And so, because of all of these things that Burnham has done, and over the years with their propaganda machine intensifying and intensifying their attacks on Burnham, the PNC seem to have been either leadership of the PNC have turned a blind eye in standing up and representing their founding leader, LFS Burnham. And over the years, I oftentimes wondered, why is it that even at the leadership level of the People's National Congress, that they have failed to stand up and push back on the propaganda by the PPP regime to say, no, Burnham was a leader. Burnham was responsible for X, Y, and Z, and to sustain that message so that it would not be lost by a generation. The legacy of Burnham, the contributions that President Burnham made to Guyana, is somewhat lost by this new generation.
True.
And I
true.
put the blame squarely on the doorsteps of the leadership of the PNC, who have turned, whether it's Mr. Desmond Hoyt, whether it's Mr. Robert Corbyn, whether it's Mr. Granger, whether it's the current leader as well, seem to have turned a blind eye in aggressively going out there and to ensure that they stand up and represent Forbes Burnham. Not only represent Forbes Burnham in from a reactionary position, that because somebody says something, you're forced to come out and say something now. That should not be the case. And so I oftentimes wonder, why is it that they are afraid? You hear the propaganda by the PPP that Burnham rigged elections, without any evidence that Burnham rigged elections. You heard the propaganda by the PPP and some of them in the WPA that Burnham and the PNC, they were responsible for the death of Walter Rodney. There's no evidence to point in that direction, because at that time, Dr. Walter Rodney was seen as somewhat, mind you, somewhat of a political threat. Somewhat, mind you, but more of a political threat to the PPP. But they're not
Than the
going to come.
PNC.
They're not going to come out to say that. And so they continue to use those sort of propaganda to make it appear that Burnham was such a bad leader, such a bad president. And there is not an organization in Guyana that is able to counter the propaganda. And so for an entire generation, they've allowed that propaganda to take its way and to basically demonize President Forbes Burnham. And so I hope that
But
this
just
time,
not cutting you.
Yeah.
Just recently, Mashermani, Freddie Kissoon and others tried to say that Burnham put Mashermani at the time of his birthday for it to be a festival to celebrate his birthday. I think you dispelled that view, and former mayor of Georgetown, Ubrach Narayan, dispelled that view. Talk to us quickly a bit about that before you continue on your train of thought.
well, they've done, again, there's no evidence for that it was set on his birthday. All sorts of things to blame, because they put Burnham as a boogeyman.
Yeah.
And they make it a, though there's nothing, because former Prime Minister and former Mayor of Georgetown, Mr. Hamilton Green, could respond to these sort of questions far better than I can, because he was there. And so he understands these things. There is no way that Burnham decided that it's going to be, Guyana is going to become a republic in 1970, February 23rd, 1970, and therefore he wants it to be placed right next to his birthday. His birthday is the 20th, and this date was all sealed, was all set before Burnham could make a final decision as to when the Guyana is going to celebrate his republic. It's just like in Linden. You heard all sorts of things that Forbes Burnham wanted Linden to be named after him. There's no truth to that. So every time there is some propaganda by the PPP, the truth keeps coming out. But the PPP, in its normal self, they have no shame. That is why I say there are Nimakarams, the leadership, that is, not the overall support base, the leadership. They're Nimakarams, they're Katahars, they're Korhis, they're Chamars, the hierarchy of the PPP. And so they have no shame, even though the truth is blatantly in their face. They have no shame at all. And so let us talk about when they say that Burnham was a dictator. Burnham had the opportunity to name the Timehri International Airport after. It could have been named. Dictators do that. And if Burnham was a dictator, then Timehri International Airport would have been Burnham International Airport. Kanji River Bridge, built on the Burnham and the PNC, would have been Burnham Kanji Bridge. All these things would have happened under Burnham's government. But you get a little community named Melanie. They say, oh, he named it after his daughter Melanie. There's no truth that Burnham had anything to do with that. And then Roxanne Burnham Gardens, right, developed self-help, developed by PNC people who admired Burnham. They decided that since Burnham didn't want his name to be placed on these things, they're going to name it Roxanne after, I think, his eldest daughter or something like that. And so there is no evidence that Burnham stamped his name on these things. They claim that Burnham had his photo on exercise book. Priya gets your photo on exercise book. Barajagdia get his photo on exercise book. And all manner of things. They claim that the Constitution has executive president. And in 1991-92 campaign for the presidency, Jagan complained that Burnham's constitution is a dictatorship constitution, and Burnham made himself executive president, and all of these things, and that you got to get rid of the constitution, that dictatorial part of the constitution. Do you know when Chetty got into office on October 5th, 1992? Chetty forgot that the same constitution that he said was dictatorial, and he enjoyed every benefit until his death. The same constitution, the same executive president is still here, and all of the so-called presidents under the PPP regime are enjoying the same benefits that they attacked Burnham. And all these things, they are enjoying the same benefits under the same constitution that they described as dictatorial. All these things under a corrupt PPP regime. So the myth and the propaganda that they've been spreading about Forbes Burnham, there is no evidence.
But now they've named the Demerara Bridge after Barajagdio. The point you are making, I'm just adding to the point you're making. They've named the Demerara Harbour Bridge after Barajagdio. They've named the Timehri International Airport after Chetty J. Gunn. The Timehri was like an Amerindian, it was dedicated to the Amerindian people, and so on. They took all of that away. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, the PPP has no shame. In fact, they're not going to tell you guys that, and maybe in a couple of days you will see it. They're currently debating whether to name New Amsterdam Psychiatric Hospital, rename it Mark Phillips Psychiatric Hospital, or Freddie Kissoon Psychiatric Hospital. That is what's going on right now. Everything they want to rename. Because under the coalition, they had an opportunity to name the Lilendal Convention Center. They named it Arthur Chung Convention Center. The PPP doesn't want those sort of things. Granger could have put it Granger Convention Center, or Burnham Convention Center, or Hoyt Convention Center. But it was named after Guyana's first non-executive president. Of course, it was ceremonial, the late Arthur Chung. And Arthur Chung should be respected. And so nobody disagreed that it should have been named Arthur Chung Convention Center. But if the PPP gets its way right now, they would change that and put it to Kwame McCoy Convention Center. That is how...
Air Finale Convention Center.
Or Air Finale Convention Center and all these things. The PPP has no regard for the people of Guyana. They have no respect for democracy.
They don't.
And that is why Guyana is the way it is right now. They appear to be a bunch of bullies, a bunch of dunces, likes of a Freddie Kissoon and a Mark Phillips and these others. Look at the type of people who are representing Guyana. Majority of them are classless.
They're classes. Mark Benschop there. Thank you so much for taking the extra time. Thank you so much for joining this program. So many people have tuned in and are tuning in as we speak. I think we would have covered all or most of the major points. I strongly believe that what we saw after Mark Phillips, the Prime Minister, would have gone out in public and said those nasty things about Burnham. At the 2026 Mashramani, we saw PNCR, APNU officials embracing Mark for a photo moment, and everybody laughing and seeming to be happy. I want to say that this is not the time to embrace the enemy. This is not the time to show the Guyanese people that we are one when there is no one Guyana. When one Guyana is a farce, when they're trampling on our rights, when they're bastardizing our leaders, when they're rigging elections, when they're murdering people, when they are at every opportunity pushing one section of Guyana deeper and deeper into the ruts, that our politicians can go out at a celebration and embrace the same people days ago that would have said nasty and horrible things, not only about their party, but about their founder leader, Linden, Forbes, Sampson, Burnham. We have to do better than that. We have to do better than that. We don't need an apology. We don't need an apology, but we need in future for our leaders to be more conscientious and care about our legacy, our history, and about our people who are being trampled on. Mark, your closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much, and to all of your listeners as well, wherever they are. Look, this is not about a propaganda campaign, at least not by me. I know that under the PNC government, the free education from nursery to university, and many folks benefited from that. I benefited from nursery. Well, I didn't attend university in Guyana, and the likes of Freddie did, and they stuck at just maybe one degree, and that's it, and stuck at one position for decades. I wouldn't be teaching at a school and be stuck at one position and not elevate myself. And so the audience can judge who is more experienced, who is learned, and who isn't. And I'm sure they're not going to choose Freddie when it comes to that. But having said that, though, let me just make it clear again. One of the other propagandas that they spread, the corrupt PPP regime, is that Burnham and the PNC, they are known for rigging elections. That's according to the PPP. There is no evidence of that. However, I can speak based on my adulthood and reading and learning about the PPP and experiencing it on the ground as well, that the biggest riggers of elections is not the PNC, it is the PPP. The PPP have been rigging elections for decades now. I think there was this McDoom elections where I believe Hamilton Green or one of them won that seat, and the PPP rigged it. In 1992, when Jimmy Carter was there, that's another question there. And let me just say, in the interest of transparency, I was in Guyana for the elections. I was back in Guyana. I worked at GBC during that period and just left just prior to the elections. And even with that, I find it somewhat questionable that I challenged the then president of the United Jimmy Carter in interviews. And so President Carter and I have had an audience together on elections and human rights violations in Guyana when he was there back in 2001, and he requested to have a meeting with me. And so, I am not just popping out to talk about elections and rigged elections and so forth. I've been there, and I spoke with a lot of those players, including the late President Jimmy Carter, on elections, on democracy, on free and fair elections in Guyana, something the PPP doesn't believe in, and something President Carter died being disappointed in the PPP regime because he got to find out belatedly that the PPP are basically riggers. So let's talk about the 2001 elections. It is my view, and folks like Basil Bradshaw, and even, well, the late Roger Moore, and others, including those diehard soldiers on the ground, those hardworking women and so forth, who were out there in their thousands upon thousands of people, and reflecting how the PPP dominate and manipulate GCOM. It is my view that the PPP robbed Desmond Hoyt of that elections
Wow.
I think it was held sometime in March 2011, 2001, sorry. Then in 2006, it is the same PPP who likes to say that the PNC, they rigged elections. It is the same PNC stole a seat from from AFC. They stole a seat from the AFC, and they put not Mark Phillips, another Paku by the name of Sam Hines in that seat. And when they were challenged, they knew that they stole that seat from the AFC in order to give it to Sam Hines. And Sam Hines barefacedly sat there for 5 years illegally in that seat. So when the PPP talks about rigged elections and stealing this, the evidence is there. In 2011, when Guyana got a minority government and a minority president, the first minority president in the history of Guyana, and that was headed by Donald Ramutar. In order to get that extra seat to put them on the top, they were attempting to rig one more seat in order to give them that majority. And they were caught with their pants down. Red-handedly, they were caught. And the evidence came from someone who was close to the PPP and handed over to one of those commissioners. Now, all of those things, the PPP might not, obviously, they're not going to come out publicly to say that. They attempted to rig the elections in 2011 to give themselves a majority. In 2015, the PPP, they were about to stop the counting of the votes when they were instructed by certain foreign players to continue with the counting. And as they continued with the counting, that is how the PNC coalition came out victorious with that one seat majority. And so it was then that Barra Jagdeo got so upset with Donald Ramutar that they weren't on speaking terms for many years. They're probably not in the best right now. And so I say all of this to suggest and to say that the PPP has been rigging elections in Guyana for the longest while. In 2020, the elections were rigged. Individuals fabricated charges against individuals who have been persecuted for over 5 years now, and they cannot conclude with the trial. If you and your listeners can recall, it was the PPP who were out there jumping on the mountaintop and hollering, "Show me your SOPs, show me your SOPs." As soon as they got installed, and mind you, they got installed, and the evidence will come out soon, because those who installed them, some of them are whispering quietly how disappointed they are. And so when they got installed now, they decided that they are going to use the SOPs as the boogeyman, so to speak, and that Granger rigged and Granger won't come out and these sort of things. That's another story. Maybe with the evidence that I'm aware of, maybe there should be a book. But there is the evidence out there that the PPP was actually installed and the Granger government was overthrown. And so in 2025 now, they sat down with the spreadsheets as to how to rig the elections. And they didn't want to rig the elections to win by 1 seat or 2 seats. They didn't want to do that. They just didn't want to do that.
It's more elaborate.
Even before the elections concluded in 2025, they already knew that they were going to get 36 seats. Everything was planned out. What's going to be the outcome? What is going to be here? What is going to be there? And how can people be confident with the electoral system there in Guyana when you have a party like the PPP that is rigging elections? They continue to rig the elections, pad the voters list, and corrupt every single person, so it appears, at GCOM. Only God knows what's happening in Guyana. And that is why you need an aggressive opposition, folks, who can not just stand up and talk about themselves all the time, but talk about issues, burning issues concerning the people of the country and how the people of Guyana would be able to gain control of the government again and have a government of the people and by the people, not a government that's basically being facilitated so that they can give away the natural resources and continue to let the people of Guyana live as poor as they're living. And as the evidence would show, 58% of Guyanese are living below the poverty level. And that is so shameful and disgraceful. Guyana needs a change. Guyana needs to breathe again. And they can only do that minus the PPP regime. And so these PNC folks, APNU folks, who are running around hugging and kissing one former MP, Annette Ferguson, dropped her $40 Pulori, run across the road, nearly get knocked down, all kind of thing, just to hug up and kiss up Priya and call that nice politics. The others saw Mark Phillips on MASH Day, decided to hug him, yeah, for these skin the teeth with him. Time for skin teeth politics is not now. They have to hold the PPP accountable. They have to be aggressive towards the PPP, and maybe another time they will come with little skin teeth and little shake hand, but not now. Now is not the time for skin teeth. Now is not the time for shake hand. Now is the time for action because Guyanese lives are at stake. Thank you so much for your
Long-standing
time.
political activist Mark Benschop and also talk show host, prominent and popular talk show host here on Voice of the Diaspora. We want to thank you very much for taking the time to join us and for your inspiring words and for the educational delivery on outpourings that our viewers got. You're a fountain of knowledge. You understand politics. You're a part of the history. And today you have delivered on this program. And so we want to thank you very much. I want to say to my viewers that Mark will be on his program. Is it in the next hour or?
Yeah, well, you have already exhausted over an hour from me, man. I'm getting up there in age. I ain't gonna get
What
a little
time
rest.
what time is your program?
I'm usually 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, but
So
yeah, I'll be on back.
you'll be on.
Yeah.
And we will be
So
watching. So I asked my viewers to cross over immediately after you would have listened to Burnham's speech one more time. And I'm asking you to record this speech, viewers, and to share this speech because our people have to know. And who Burnham was, what he meant to Guyana, all of Guyana. And so, Mark, thank you so much.
yeah,
And
thank
thank
you
you to
so much.
all my viewers who have
Uh,
tuned in.
um,
Let me leave. Go ahead,
Wrong
Mark.
before I sorry. These are the type of shows that should be shared wide and far.
Widely, yes.
Now, I understand, yeah, people like the little joke, they like the little skin teeth and things like that. But these are the sort of serious shows that have to be shared wide and far. And let me just say that the article in the Village Voice where I rebutted Mark Phillips and Freddie
Freddie
Kissoon,
Kissoon.
folks can go on the Village Voice right now and they can see that as well. But Mr. Brown, thank you so much for your time and continue the good work as
And
well.
thank you so much too.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
continue the good work too. Thank you so much, Mark Benschop. Viewers, here is Linden Forbes, Sampson Burnham, former president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, the same one that the PPP is bastardizing. Hear from him yourself.
The campaign has come to an end. On the results, the People's National Congress, in the interests of peace and stability in Guyana, has agreed with the support of the United Force to form the government. One of the more serious tasks facing us at this moment is the attainment of independence at the earliest point of time. One of the disturbing features of the election, which we have noted, is the apparent cleavage existing in our society, brought about by colonialism and 7 years of mismanagement and misrule. It has come to our knowledge that despite the years of disaster suffered by the people of this country, a large section of the electorate was persuaded against its best interests to vote for the party formerly in power as a result of the dishonest and opportunist propaganda that unless that party was returned to power, those people would suffer. The new government, headed by me, intends to show by its actions in the immediate future, and indeed throughout its term of office, that this is not true. The problem of racial cleavage, racial antagonism, and distrust, which the last government allowed to develop during its term of office, is still with us. But our government recognizes this as a challenge which it intends to accept and which it is determined to overcome. My government considers that it is a matter of the greatest importance and the utmost urgency that an atmosphere of relaxation be established immediately. The reduction of tension, which is already apparent and which will become more pronounced with every passing day, when it is realized that not only are we intent on being fair and just, but also that we have at our disposal the means to carry out our intention, is merely the first fruits of our attainment of office. Enemies of this country would like to see racial division and antagonism continue. They will not have that satisfaction. The government recognizes that its duty is to rule in the interests of all the people of this country. It will dispel the fears of the apprehensive and confound the hopes of those who seek the destruction of this country. To be specific, this government holds that all the people of this country are equally important, whether they belong to a large group or to a small group. To us, the Amerindians are important. To us, the Chinese are important. To us, the Portuguese are important. To us, the Europeans are important. To us, the mixed races are important. To us, the Africans are important. To us, the Indians are important. In short, all Guyanese are important and valued members of our community, and we cherish them and consider that as a government it is our duty and privilege to guard, protect, and further the real interests of all. It would appear that the would-be destroyers of this country have sought to convince our Indian citizens that they have cause to fear because of the removal of the former government. We can assure our Indian citizens here and now that rather than cause for fear, they have much to hope for from the new government. This government is not bent on the confiscation of property. This government will not pursue policies likely to bring the races into collision. This government will maintain law and order. This government, while in office, will never declare its impotence to see that the lives and property and personal safety of any citizens are protected. We are fully aware that attempts will be made in the future, as in the past, to create disturbances. All of us know who are likely to create disturbances and who think that they have some benefit to be derived from chaos and violence. We have no benefit to derive from such things, and we will stamp out firmly and ruthlessly any disruption of the calm and studied and steady progress which we are determined to establish and maintain in this country for the good of all. We ask for time, patience, understanding. The damage done over the last 7 years cannot be repaired in a day. We cannot and will not condone and accept the nepotism and corruption of the past 7 years. Changes are necessary, and changes will be made. But no one who is honest and possessed of ability need have the least apprehension. The results of the election and the formation of our government are not to be considered a victory for one party, but a triumph for the whole Guyanese people. There is nothing to gloat over. Nobody is pant up But all of us are, I am sure, sobered by the realization of how near we came to having our country destroyed, and how arduous were our endeavors to give this country the chance to live, to breathe, to survive. It has been reported to me that some established organizations have made representations to the British government about Guyanese affairs. I wish to announce that in the immediate future I shall seek to hold discussions with the Mahasabha, the Hindu organization, the United Sadr Islamic Anjuman, ASCRIA, GALE, the Chinese Association, and of course with the Archbishop of the West Indies, the Roman Catholic Bishop of Georgetown, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, the Congregational Conference, the Methodist Body, and other religious and cultural organizations. My purpose as Premier is to establish a consultative democracy. And now that the majority of the Guyanese electorate has declared in favor of the government in power, it is my wish that Guyanese in and out of the legislature, with malice towards none and goodwill towards all, will settle down to the engaging task of binding up the nation's wounds and
with humble hearts and heads bowed down, and thanks for each new day of toil, we kneel before thine altar, Lord, the children of Guyana soil. Great is the task that thou hast given, thy will to show, thy truth to find, to teach ourselves that we are one in thy great universal mind. But not in vain, we'll strive to build a new Guyana, great and free, a land of glory and of hope, a land of love and unity. Oh, children of Guyana, rise, rise up and sing with happy tears, and bless the land that gave you birth, and vow to serve her through the years. Yes, yes, oh yeah. With humble hearts and heads bowed down, in thanks for each new day of toil, we kneel before thine altar, Lord, the children of Guyana soil. Yes, so yeah. Great is the task that thou hast given, thy will to show, thy truth to find, to teach ourselves that we are one in thy great universal